There is a unique kind of heartbreak that comes from loving someone who disappears the moment the relationship begins to feel close. It is not always because they are heartless or because their feelings disappeared. Often, your closeness awakens something much older inside them, a survival response built into their nervous system long before you ever entered their life. When people experience that kind of withdrawal, they usually react in one of two ways. They either shut the other person out or desperately try to pull them back. One choice is meant to regain power. The other is meant to regain connection. Both seem completely understandable when someone distances themselves without giving you any explanation. But there is something most people never hear. Neither response changes the outcome. It is not because you are failing or because you have not loved enough, waited enough, or sacrificed enough. The reason they fail is much simpler. Both are driven by the same force. Both are forms of pursuit. To an avoidant nervous system, pursuit does not feel like love. It feels like danger. Think about blocking someone. It often feels like taking your power back. It says, "I'll close the door before you get the chance to hurt me." On the surface, that may look like confidence, but underneath it is fear wearing the mask of anger. An avoidant person has spent years unconsciously reading emotional signals to keep themselves safe. They recognize that fear almost instantly. They do not see someone establishing healthy boundaries. Instead, they see someone whose emotional pain has become so intense that they would rather destroy the connection than sit with uncertainty. That reaction confirms the fear they have carried for years, that anyone who becomes emotionally attached to them will eventually expect more than they can give. So instead of moving closer, they retreat even further. Then the distance grows, and many people change strategies. They begin pleading. They send long messages explaining everything. They ask for one last conversation. They apologize for mistakes they never made, hoping it will keep the relationship alive. The avoidant feels guilty, but beneath that guilt is something even more uncomfortable. They feel overwhelmed by the situation itself. Your emotional need has become impossible to ignore. Their nervous system experiences those pleas as pressure, not because you intended to pressure them, but because they believe they are being asked to fill an emotional space they have never learned to fill within themselves. So they leave again, not because running makes them happy, but because it is the only survival strategy they have ever trusted. This is the part that most relationship advice leaves out. Avoidants are not actually afraid of anger. Anger is direct. It is predictable. They know how to respond to it. What truly unsettles them is visible emotional need. Need is uncertain. Need is vulnerable. Need asks them to step into emotional territory they were never taught how to navigate. Whether you block them or beg them, your need is still being communicated. Blocking is need hidden behind pride. Begging is need exposed through desperation. To an avoidant, both can feel like a tightening grip around their freedom. Their instinct is to cut that connection before they feel trapped. It is not necessarily because they stopped loving you. It is because they have spent their entire life cutting emotional ties whenever closeness felt overwhelming. Now here is something that changes everything. The most powerful thing you can offer an avoidant is not punishment, silence, manipulation, or emotional games. It is calm, steady presence without demands. A quiet energy that says, "I'm here. I'm not forcing you. I'm not asking you to become someone you're not." That kind of presence reaches them more deeply than arguments, ultimatums, or emotional speeches ever could. Why? Because it removes the story they have believed their entire lives. The belief that everyone eventually asks for too much, that every relationship eventually becomes overwhelming, that closeness always turns into pressure. When you stop chasing, you stop reinforcing that belief. And for the first time, they are left facing something they cannot escape, their own patterns. Welcome to Inside Avoidant. If you've ever felt emotionally drained, confused, or questioned your own worth because someone pulled away just as you felt close to them, you're exactly where you need to be. This channel is not about comforting lies or quick fixes. It is about understanding what is really happening beneath the surface. Here, we don't paint avoidance as villains, nor do we excuse harmful behavior. We look at them as people whose protective strategies were built long ago, but no longer serve them. By the end of this video, you'll understand why every strategy you've relied on has likely pushed them farther away. More importantly, you'll discover the one change that has the potential to shift the entire relationship, not through manipulation, but by changing the way your own nervous system responds. Stay with me, because the next part may challenge what you believe. But truth often feels uncomfortable before it becomes liberating. Many people assume that the moment you disappear or stop reaching out, the avoidant instantly suffers. Usually, that is not what happens. Their first emotion is relief. It feels like taking a deep breath after carrying invisible pressure. No unanswered messages, no expectations, no feeling that someone is waiting for them to respond perfectly. That relief is genuine, but it is temporary. Slowly, another feeling begins to replace it. An emptiness, a quiet absence where your presence used to exist. Here is what most people miss. They rarely recognize that feeling for what it is. They have never developed the emotional language to understand it, so instead, they rename it. They tell themselves they simply enjoy being alone. They convince themselves they never really needed anyone. But that story protects them from something much scarier. The realization that your absence affects them far more than they are willing to admit. Absence feels safe. Presence asks them to participate emotionally. It asks them to be vulnerable, to be understood, to risk being truly seen. Silence asks nothing. That is why distance often feels more comfortable to them than intimacy. Not because love is absent, but because throughout their life, love has become associated with pressure rather than safety. Still, there is something they almost never admit. They notice your absence. They notice the quiet mornings without your message. They notice the evenings without hearing your voice. They notice. They simply refuse to acknowledge it, even to themselves. This is the key that explains so much. They are not emotionally cold. Coldness is a decision. They are emotionally frozen. Freezing is an automatic survival response. From the outside, it looks calm and controlled. But underneath, it is an ancient defense mechanism protecting them from the very thing they secretly fear most, their own need for connection with you. Every time you react with a desperate message, another phone call, or one more attempt to pull them back, you awaken something buried far beneath the surface. It is not irritation. It is not anger. It is fear. A very old fear that has little to do with you and everything to do with lessons they absorbed long before they understood relationships. Deep inside, their nervous system repeats the same message it has repeated for years. If someone depends on me this much, eventually I'll lose myself. That is not a conscious belief. It is an automatic response. It happens faster than thought and deeper than memory. Most people assume avoidants are terrified of being abandoned, but there is another fear that often runs even deeper. They are not only afraid you'll leave, They are afraid you'll stay. Because if you stay, and if you truly need them, they believe they must become someone they have never learned how to be. Emotionally present, consistently available, deeply connected. That unknown feels far more frightening than being left behind. Abandonment is familiar. They have survived it before. Being genuinely needed by someone who refuses to walk away feels unpredictable, and to their nervous system, unpredictability equals danger. So they retreat again. Not because your emotions scared them away, but because your reactions seem to confirm everything they already believed. Their inner voice says, "See, this is why distance is safer. This is why closeness becomes too much." But there is one question they rarely allow themselves to ask. What if the problem was never your need? What if the real fear comes from believing they cannot hold someone else's emotions without losing themselves? That question threatens the foundation of every defense they have built. Inside every avoidant is a conflict that almost no one else can see. One part of them longs for closeness. It wants intimacy, comfort, understanding, and genuine connection. That part has never disappeared. It has simply been buried beneath years of protection. Another part feels ashamed of that longing. Not ashamed of you, ashamed of needing anyone at all. To them, wanting someone feels dangerously close to weakness. And weakness, according to the emotional blueprint they learned early in life, leads to pain. So when you move closer, ask for reassurance or seek deeper connection, the protective side takes control. They pull away. Not because they don't want you, because wanting you forces them to face a vulnerable part of themselves they have spent years trying to silence. That is the painful truth. Many times they are not rejecting you. They are rejecting the part of themselves that longs for you. As long as you keep pursuing them, that protective side remains in charge. But when you finally stop chasing, something unexpected happens. There is no longer anything for their defenses to fight against. Slowly, the buried longing begins to rise. For the first time, it has room to exist because no one is demanding anything from them. Yet this creates another problem. Longing without emotional safety is unbearable. They want closeness, but reaching for it would awaken all the fear and shame they have spent years avoiding. So they remain trapped in the middle. They miss you, they resent needing you, they want to call, they convince themselves not to. Then they label that emotional paralysis as numbness. But it isn't numbness. It is an internal battle between two versions of themselves. And nobody truly wins a battle against their own heart. Most people misunderstand avoidant attachment completely. They assume the deepest wound is fear of abandonment. For many avoidants, the deeper wound is fear of being emotionally consumed. They fear disappearing inside someone else's expectations until they no longer know who they are. That is why anger rarely changes anything. Anger stays outside of them. They can avoid it. But calm, emotionally steady presence reaches somewhere much deeper. When you remain grounded, when you stop chasing, when you stay kind without demanding reassurance, you present something their nervous system doesn't know how to categorize. You are close, but you aren't controlling them. You are available, but you aren't asking them to carry your emotional world. That completely disrupts their usual pattern. Their defenses were designed to escape pressure. When pressure disappears, their system has no clear reason to run. And in that unfamiliar stillness, they come face to face with something they have avoided for years, the original wound. The younger version of themselves who reached for connection and never felt safe receiving it. That child has remained frozen beneath layers of protection. Your calm doesn't attack their walls, It simply makes those walls unnecessary. When the walls become unnecessary, every buried feeling begins to surface. That is why they may seem even more distant or irritated at first. It doesn't always mean your approach failed. Sometimes it means their entire system is struggling to adjust. Like a building where the alarms suddenly stop sounding, the silence itself becomes unsettling. Yet only in that silence can something real finally begin. Whether they accept it is another story. Many people expect avoidance to feel instant regret after a breakup. Most don't. Regret arrives slowly. It slips in quietly after the first couple of weeks. Life starts feeling strangely empty. The routines that once distracted them lose their effect. The mornings feel different. The evenings feel quieter. Their favorite comforts stop providing comfort. But instead of recognizing that they miss you, they tell themselves they are simply bored or restless. That discomfort is often regret wearing another name. What makes it even more painful is that the regret usually isn't just about losing you. It is about losing the person they could have become with you. Someone understood them. Someone remained patient. Someone offered steadiness instead of chaos. Those experiences are incredibly rare. Even if they never admit it, some part of them knows it. Their mind begins replaying ordinary memories, not the arguments, the peaceful conversations, your laughter, your quiet understanding, the moments when you didn't force them to be different. Those memories don't arrive as romantic nostalgia. They arrive as an ache they cannot fully explain. Sometimes they send a distant message, a casual, "How have you been?" It may look like love returning. Often it is regret searching for relief. But regret without honest self-reflection easily turns into resentment. Rather than face their own choices, they may convince themselves leaving was still the right decision. Not because it truly was, because accepting the truth feels emotionally unbearable. The deepest truth is this: they are not only grieving your absence, they are grieving the version of themselves that never learned how to stay when love felt safe. That loss follows them quietly. It grows heavier until they either face it or bury it so deeply they stop recognizing it altogether. Meanwhile, your life continues. You are no longer waiting for their next message, and that is the part they never expected. Beneath the regret, beneath the emotional distance, beneath the carefully controlled image they show the world, lives an intense longing. Not the romantic longing people write poems about. A deep desire to be accepted, understood, and loved without feeling they have to earn it. Yet speaking that desire aloud would mean questioning the survival strategy they have relied on their entire lives. To them, that feels like losing everything they know. So the longing remains hidden. It appears only in unexpected moments, a dream they cannot explain, an impulse to call you that disappears as quickly as it arrives, a quiet sadness while watching two elderly people holding hands. They may not understand why that image affects them so deeply, but it does, because it reminds them of something they have always wanted but never believed was truly safe. The ability to stay close without feeling trapped. To be fully known without wanting to disappear. And perhaps the deepest truth of all is this: at first, they are not only longing for you, they are longing for the version of themselves that could have accepted your love without fear. That version still exists somewhere inside them, like a forgotten ghost. The person they might have become if, as a child, someone had looked into their eyes and quietly told them, "You don't have to be afraid of needing people. You are allowed to stay." They may spend years running from that hidden part of themselves, yet every so often, Usually in the quietest moments, the running slows down. The silence catches up with them, and the feelings they've buried begin to surface. They won't necessarily text you. They probably won't call. Instead, they'll sit alone with an emotion they can't quite explain. What they're feeling isn't simply loneliness. It's the space you once occupied. It's the weight of realizing they didn't lose you because you walked away. They lost you because they couldn't stay emotionally present long enough to hold the relationship together. That realization reaches a place their defenses cannot protect. So they carry it, quietly, like a stone tucked into a pocket that no one else can see. It never disappears. It simply grows heavier over time. Eventually, every avoidant reaches a crossroads. Keep carrying the weight alone, or finally put it down. But putting it down requires vulnerability. It means reaching out. It means risking rejection, disappointment, and the possibility of being fully seen. For many, that feels more frightening than continuing to suffer in silence. So they wait, they hope. Months become years, while part of them quietly wishes you'll come back and make the first move once again. But this time, you don't. Because you've learned something they haven't. Missing someone is not enough to build a healthy relationship. Longing is not a reason to return. It's an invitation to grow. And growth is often the hardest journey an avoidant will ever face. This brings us to the heart of everything we've talked about. After all the confusion, after every unanswered message, after every moment you wondered whether you simply weren't enough, understand this: you were never carrying the real problem. That doesn't mean you're perfect. It means the relationship wasn't falling apart because of your imperfections. It was colliding with fears that existed long before you arrived. Fears so deeply rooted that they often disguise themselves as independence and strength. But avoidance is not strength. Real strength is remaining emotionally present when vulnerability feels uncomfortable. Real strength is saying, "I'm scared, but I'm willing to stay." Avoidance does the opposite. It teaches people to leave before anyone has the chance to leave them. From the outside, that strategy can look powerful, but over time, it becomes something else: a prison. The painful part is that they're trapped inside it too. Most simply haven't realized it yet. You came here looking for the one thing that affects an avoidant more than anything else. The answer isn't manipulation. It isn't playing hard to get. It isn't blocking them, disappearing, or trying to make them jealous. The most powerful thing you can offer is something much quieter, a calm, steady presence that expects nothing. Not emotional distance, not revenge, not silence used as punishment. Simply living your own life with peace. An energy that quietly communicates, "I'm okay, I care about you, but my happiness doesn't depend on whether you stay or leave." That message reaches places arguments never can, because it removes the story they've relied on for years. The story that everyone eventually becomes too demanding, too overwhelming, too emotionally dependent. When that story no longer fits, they are left with only one thing to face: themselves. But perhaps the biggest realization is this: this conversation was never only about the avoidant. It has always been about you. About the person who spent countless hours analyzing every mixed signal, waiting for every reply, trying harder, loving harder, believing that if you just found the right words, the relationship would finally become safe. You deserve more than a life devoted to decoding someone else's fears. You cannot heal another person by abandoning yourself. You cannot earn lasting love by accepting emotional distance as normal. The only lasting change begins when you stop needing another person to become different before you allow yourself to feel complete. Ironically, that's also when you become the safest version of yourself. If they eventually return, they won't find the person who begged them to stay. They'll meet someone who has already found peace without them. And if they never come back, you haven't lost your future. You've only released the illusion of a relationship that never had the stability to grow. Take a moment and imagine your own hands. They're not empty. They've simply been gripping hope so tightly that there hasn't been room for anything else. Now it's time to let go. Not because you've stopped caring, because you've started choosing yourself. Maturity isn't giving up on love. It's understanding that love isn't about rescuing another person from themselves. Healthy love happens when two emotionally whole people choose each other freely, each capable of standing on their own. If an avoidant cannot stand beside you, that isn't proof that you weren't enough. It's evidence that they're still fighting battles only they can choose to face. And if one day they return, let them return to someone who no longer depends on their presence to feel worthy. That's the only kind of relationship with a real chance of lasting. One built on choice, not emotional survival. If this message helped you see avoidant attachment from a new perspective, support Inside Avoidant by liking this video. Not for my sake, but because someone else may be searching for these answers right now, wondering why the person they love keeps pulling away. Subscribe if you want honest conversations about attachment, relationships, and the psychology behind human behavior without empty promises or manipulation. And I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment sharing one boundary you've decided you'll never ignore again. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read, to realize they aren't facing this journey alone. I'll leave you with one final thought. You cannot force an avoidant to recognize your value. But you can stop losing yourself while trying to convince them to see it. That isn't rejection, it's freedom. And freedom is where genuine healing begins. Go build a life that feels meaningful, not to make someone come back, but because your life deserves to be fully lived. Know your worth, whether someone chooses to stay or not. That is emotional maturity. That is healing. That is where the chasing ends, and where your real life finally begins. Whole, steady, unafraid, finally free.